Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Closer Look, the show dedicated to bringing you the facts. We ask the questions no one else will, and we get the answers that no one else can. I'm Arabina Apia. Thanks so much for joining us. In the past 50 years, the Bahamas has become synonymous with a lot. Great weather, crystal clear water, pink sand beaches, and of course, Junkanoo. Now, these elements of our country's story have captivated the world, but in the grand scheme of things, is that enough? As we move toward 50 years as an independent nation, we, like other young nations, find ourselves at a crossroads because we are more than just postcard perfect scenery. Our identity, our nationhood, is more than just sun, sand, and sea. It lives in the hearts and minds of our people, in the stories that are passed down through generations, and in the collective dreams that help shape the future. The past 50 years have been a bit of a balancing act, trying to preserve our rich cultural heritage and deeply Christian beliefs while avoiding the quote-unquote corruptive influences of the world, while also attempting to embrace the opportunities that have come with globalization. So, how do we honor tradition while fostering innovation? How do we protect our natural resources while ensuring sustainable development? The good news is that our national identity is not a static concept. It's a living, breathing entity that evolves with each passing day. Every week in the month of July, we will be taking a closer look at that evolution from the perspective of the diverse mix of men and women that make up our colorful Bahamian mosaic. Our three-part series will delve into conversations that explore who we are as a nation and who we aspire to be. Stay tuned, because together we begin our journey of reflection, introspection, and extrospection right after this.
Franklin D. Roosevelt said once that we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. For this reason, I believe that the way young people can contribute to the idea of one nation, as well as the growth of the Bahamas, is by being more active in society and being more knowledgeable, aware, and involved in our communities and what's occurring in them. Our youth need to bring about and inspire social changes in each other and in themselves. Youth should encourage others and be encouraged by their parents and support systems to be more involved in the country, community, economy, and culture of the Bahamas. The young people of today are more than capable of coming up with newer and grander business ventures to deploy in the Bahamas that will capture the interests of people from all around the globe. Instead of poking fun of or discouraging our friends and children for their bright ideas and expressing their creativity, we should instead give them spaces where they are able to embrace that creativity and show them support. Because one day, those small, silly ideas can turn this small archipelago into a country able to rival the Great Dubai. As Barack Obama once said, the future belongs to young people with an education and the imagination to create.
Welcome back. You're watching A Closer Look. I'm Arabina Apia. Thanks so much for tuning in. After 50 years of independence, it goes without saying that we could probably find hundreds of things to complain about. From political disagreements to social and economic challenges, our ongoing national development has its fair share of divisive elements. But amidst the complexities and the differences, there are far more elements that actually unite us as a nation. Our shared experiences of triumph and resilience, rooted in our journey towards self-governance, have forged a bond that transcends our individual perspectives. The strength of our unity lies in the diversity of our people coming together under the common banner of Bahamian identity. ACL correspondent Catherine Duncombe takes a look at the issues in this report. Catherine?
Heritage is one of the main things that Bahamian people love to celebrate. Every time you meet a Bahamian, one of the first things we say is, who's your people? From you hear their surname, you want to know who they are, what's the legacy, what's the rich history, what island are you from? What are the things that make your island what it is? So when you hear about Bimini or you hear about Exuma, Long Island, you want to know more. And these things capture and captivate our attention because the Bahamas is just that awesome. And so heritage, I would say, is one of those things. And of course, you know, Bahamians get together over food. Food is unmistakably one of the favorite pastimes of Bahamian people. Some other people have sports and other things as their pastime. We have the Olympics of food in the Bahamas with so many different delicacies. You know, every function that we have food surrounding that function. If people are going to your function, they say, is any food going to be there? And what are you having? And we are able to get together over that. And I think our young people as well have captured this essence where we celebrate culture, we celebrate heritage, we celebrate excellence.
That was Director of Youth Sandina Neely, who, like Bahamians across the country, is gearing up to mark the Bahamas' Jubilee anniversary of independence. In the lead up to July 10th, citizens and residents from all walks of life have been actively engaged in the many national events curated by the Independence Secretariat. Each of them designed to give Bahamians the opportunity to showcase our collective patriotism. For Joe Stubbs, Dean of Students at the University of the Bahamas, celebrating this year's milestone independence is not just about acknowledging where we've come from, but embracing the diversity that will eventually take us into a new era of our national identity.
A diverse Bahamas, I know immigration conversations are happening now, and I know it's a touchy subject, but understanding that, diversity is something that's really important for a nation to grow, new ideas, new thought processes.
Whether we are cheering on our athletes as they compete on the world stage, lending a helping hand to our neighbors in times of crisis, or celebrating our cultural heritage, these moments have reminded us that our nationhood is not just a concept, but a lived experience. It's an experience which Tamika Marshall-Coley says she was not prepared to miss.
I want to be patriotic because my mother told me back in 1973, she was one of the dancers for the first independence. And because this is something that she boasts about, she brags, she can relate back to before we had our independence. I am now walking in the footsteps of, what she went through, her grandparents went through, what I'm going through, my son will go through.
50 years of independence is a major milestone, one that deserves to be celebrated, and clearly Bahamians are doing just that. They are coming out in numbers to be a part of the Jubilee celebrations and are taking full advantage of the opportunity to come together as one nation, one people united in love and service.
Thanks so much, Catherine. When we return, a closer look hits the streets to hear from you. We're talking to Bahamians from all walks of life to capture your voices, your hopes, and your dreams for the future. Stay with us.
Well, national identity, or more correctly, the sense of national identity is absolutely critical to our development as a sovereign people. We live in a highly fractured society. There are so many fissures. We're divided in so many ways according to our political, religious, social, economic differences of gender, differences of age. There's so many things that tend to divide us as a people. So I think we need to learn, or to continue to learn, to find a common ground where we can all meet to transcend these differences and to find things which unite us and unify us as a people. And so having this sense of national identities is critically important to that process. We've found some excellent ways to do that. Sports, for example, is an excellent example of how we're able to find something that brings us all together, irrespective of our differences. And we're all united in supporting our athletes on the field. For those brief, fleeting, shining moments, we forget about our differences. We need to take that same spirit and try to replicate it, across the national spectrum, and to continue to find other ways where we can meet and find ways to continue to develop the sense of national identity, which is so important to our development.
Welcome back. I'm Arabina Apia, and you're watching A Closer Look. Thanks so much for tuning in. Our Independence Jubilee presents us with a unique opportunity for self-reflection. Now more than ever, many Bahamians are considering the many ways that they contribute to national identity, acknowledging the significance of their roles in shaping our collective destiny. It's also important to recognize, however, that not all of us are as fully engaged in this introspective journey as we could be. Some may not yet grasp the profound impact that they can have on our national identity, or they may underestimate the power of their individual contributions. During this celebratory milestone, we took to the streets to get your perspectives on the role that we all play in defining who we are as a nation. Let's take a closer look. Conversations with Bahamians ahead of this year's Independence Jubilee celebrations have revealed quite a lot about the way we view our country, our national identity, and our nationhood. We took to the streets to hear from Bahamians in their own words what 50 years of independence means to them.
Well, it is great to be a part of a lot of these events, from the 50th on Bay to the walkathon we did in December. And it's actually pretty excited to be 50 years and representing the island of Eleuthera. It's great to be in Nassau to basically experience it all. Last year was my first independence in the city, and this year, the biggest one, the 50th year. So I'm looking forward to Independence Day on July 10th and celebrating with all the Bahamians.
This road to 50 is so powerful and so meaningful in terms of where we come from 1973 as a country. We're small, but we're strong in nature because of our people, our heritage, our tradition. And it's so significant because all the trailblazers that paved the way for all of us as Bahamians to stand on, the late Sir Lyndon Oscar Pinling, former Premier, Prime Minister, Sir Milo Butler, all the stalwarts, all of the leaders, former leaders, and even the leaders of today. There's so much to be proud of as Bahamians, and I'm just so happy that I'm a part of it to be here this time, because I don't know if I'm going to be here in another 50 years, but hey.
I love that it's just inciting this Bahamian pride in all of us, and we're able to come together for this big 50th, so I'm definitely in awe. I love it.
And with the country rightfully in celebratory mode, many Bahamians, however, are painstakingly aware of the challenges that lie ahead of us as we journey into another 50 years of national development. Some of the people we spoke to had a special message for Bahamians both near and far.
The Bahamas can't go anywhere if we don't take it that place. If all of our educated and industrious people stay away, it can't go anywhere. However, I know that it's difficult to excel coming back as an educated person because of many, many different factors. So there are times when you may get an offer that is better in another country, financially better, the ability for upward mobility better, just generally better for you. However, if that's your choice, that's fine, but we all can't do that. The Bahamas cannot go anywhere if everyone that's a part of it and holds it as their own stays away.
I would say to Bahamians in general is that we should dream. We should dream for a better nation. We should dream for better versions of ourselves. And don't lose sight and don't give up on our country. Sometimes it's difficult. There are definitely challenges living here. but it's a beautiful place.
And while the idea of nationhood and national identity may differ from island to island and even person to person, the Bahamian tapestry is woven together with the threads of shared values, mutual respect, and a deep sense of community. For a closer look, I'm Arabina Apia. When we return, our conversations on nationhood continue with two very special in-studio guests, Dr. Ian Strawn and Dr. Nicolette Bethel. You definitely don't want to miss it, so stay tuned.
The 50th celebrations have reminded me and the public at large how really resilient and strong we are as a people and as a country. I don't care how rich you are, I don't care how poor you are, whether you're from East Street or the Eastern Road. We all love this country. We want to see the success of this country. And the 50th celebrations has stirred our patriotism, our unity. There's something about during a celebration of the 50th independence, seeing that sea of aquamarine and yellow and black being waved and adorned by the crowd, that brings a euphoric, patriotic moment of unity. That feeling cannot be duplicated.
Welcome back. You're watching A Closer Look. I'm Arabina Apia. Thanks so much for joining us. My next guests are scholars, historians, and passionate advocates. Together, they're here to help us navigate and unpack the core elements of our national identity. Please welcome to the show Dr. Ian Strawn and Dr. Nicolette Bethel. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here. So we're talking all things nationhood, national identity. And I want to hear from both of you, in your opinion, how the perception of nationhood has evolved over the years, and also what are some of the factors that have contributed to that evolution and what it currently is right now.
Interesting. Well, okay, so I guess let me just start by saying two things. One, nations don't just happen. And that's maybe one of the lessons we need to learn. Because we did all the political stuff, we got our constitution, we got our flag, we got our symbols, we got all of that stuff. But the investment in determining and defining who we are, having the conversation, not only about who we are, who we were, and who we want to be, we're still not doing that. We're just kind of going with the flow, taking advantage of where we find ourselves in the world at this juncture in, geographical space, right up under the armpit of the United States of America, with all the beautiful water, all of that. We're just taking advantage of that, but we're not being aspirational enough. We are not saying, this is who we want to be. And we're also not teaching ourselves, this is who we are and who we were, and building on the best of that, getting rid of the worst.
Now, let me interject, because aren't we, the greatest little country in the world? Aren't we a Christian nation based on Christian values? Aren't those things that we say that we are and we project, or we try to project to the world?
Okay. First of all, we say these things, but I'm not sure that we even try to project it. They're at odds with some of the facts that we already know about our country. Things like how high our rate of violence is, whether or not that violence ends in death or not, how high the rate of violation of women is in our society, the place of women in our society, our inability to acknowledge and assimilate and incorporate the people that we know we need to work with, our inability to make use of the 98.9% of our land that we're not actually using all that much. Things like that. So,
Dr. Strawn, do you agree?
Yeah, I think, well, of course, the Bahamas has existed for hundreds of years before July 10, 1973, right? There was a Bahamas, Bahama Islands, a colony, etc. And so this thing, as Nico's alluding, we kind of created this in a context where other Caribbean colonies had done it before. And there are official narratives, or there are certain ways in which we define ourselves based on the history books and the news reports and speeches and so on that have to do with certain key figures and the contribution they played. I think we're comfortable, what can I say, occupying a Bahamian identity when we're competing at Carifta and we're winning gold medals at the Olympics, and celebrities are visiting us and we're welcoming tourists, right? Those are comfortable constructs and understandings of the Bahamas. But there are, as Nico's alluding to, other more vexing elements to nationhood, to whether it's the same Bahamas for everybody. Is it the same Bahamas for women? It's the same Bahamas for people born to a non-Bahamian parent. It's the same Bahamas for a poor child who's living in Bain and Grants Town. Is it the same Bahamas for someone living in Mayaguana or East End, Grand Bahama, right? So this is the thing. We are more diverse than we think. There are more pathways to being a Bahamian that we sometimes want to acknowledge. There are many more origin stories that we might want to acknowledge, and our history is more complex than we sometimes think.
I love the idea of multiple pathways to being Bahamian. I
Yes.
want to talk about that. Let's explore that, because if you ain't born, bred, cadet, if your navel string ain't buried somewhere in somebody's island backyard, a lot of people might say, well, you're Bahamian. I'm Bahamian, but I don't have a Bahamian last name.
No, but even if you are born and bred Bahamian, we still don't have that much room for you to be Bahamian. Because if you're born and bred in this nation, but your parents didn't come from here, you're not Bahamian. And that, to me, is problematic. There's a thing about the way in which we have constructed our Bahamian citizenship and our pathways to identity under the Constitution, obviously, that are problematic, particularly from the point of view of Bahamian women. But one of the things that we need to reckon with is that under our Constitution, there is no guarantee that any single Bahamian person has that their grandchildren will be automatically Bahamian.
Wow.
None. There's enough interrupters that come in through the Constitution for one to be able to lose or not be able to pass on their citizenship.
And I'll just say this too, we are evolving, right?
Yeah.
So we had a starting point as a modern nation state. But even if you look at the most powerful country in the world and its over 200-year history, it has had to come to reckoning points with its own vision and aspiration. In other words, it wasn't always living up to its own declaration of independence, that all men are created equal, right? So there were many who were not even considered men, right? Not considered equal, and that's a struggle that stretched into the 20th century. And so we ought not to be alarmed that we find these pressure points, these tensions. It's up for us to rise to the occasion and be mature and make sure that our concept of nation in every generation is one that is just and fair, and equal
and
inclusive.
relevant.
Yes, to the next generation.
I'm interested to hear from you both. What does a reckoning look like? A reckoning of our colonial past? What we say we are versus what we actually are, and also what we aspire to be.
I can jump in first, and then
go ahead.
Think about apartheid in South Africa. Think about the awful crimes done to black people in South Africa. And one of the most important things they did was not just release Nelson Mandela, but they had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And so there are pressure points, tension points, stresses in our whole journey of nationhood where there need to be spaces created for dialogue, for confession, for exposure, for listening and for telling, that will bring healing and unison, greater unison to the country. And so that's what I mean by reckoning. And then also too, you see a reckoning even in the recent Ian Winder decision, right? That the Privy Council basically says, this actually doesn't make any sense. Right? So,
I think Ian's absolutely right in terms of reckoning. I think that we need to come to terms with a number of things that are even problematic in our own in our own self-narrative, right? So if we say we're a Christian nation, what does that mean? That means if you're a Rastafarian, you're not a Bahamian, right? If you're a Muslim, you're not a Bahamian. What does that mean, right? Christianity is a faith, and the Constitution actually says that we don't discriminate according to religion. So it's the preamble of the Constitution that says we are a nation based on Christian principles, which is fine. But where do other people who have no faith or other faiths fit?
This is a very interesting conversation. And unfortunately, we don't have enough time in our show to go into everything. But ladies and gentlemen, the conversation continues via our social media. So stay tuned for more of a closer look and more of this interesting conversation. Dr. Bethel, Dr. Strawn, I want to thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
All right. Stay tuned. There's more A Closer Look after the break.
Out, guys. 1 minute out. And 3, 2.
Hello, everyone. Be sure to tune in right here every Monday night at 8 p.m. for another episode of A Closer Look, the show dedicated to bringing you the facts. I'm Arabina Apia, your host for this season, and I'll see you right here every Monday night at 8 p.m. on cable channel 212. We are a nation with a rich and storied legacy, marked by the struggles and triumphs of the forefathers who fought for the freedoms we now enjoy. As we stand on the cusp of 50 years of sovereignty, we are in a position not only to reflect, but to celebrate our achievements and, more importantly, plot the way forward. Together, we can embrace our diverse backgrounds, harness our collective strengths, and forge a future that truly represents the aspirations of each and every one of us. Because true nationhood is not just about the image we project to the world, but about the values we hold dear, the unity we foster, and the legacy we leave for generations to come. I hope you've enjoyed the first part in our 3-part Independence series, and I hope that you'll join us again next week when we dive into our history and explore the national legacy, the major players, and their impact on how we see ourselves. Till next time, Bahamas, I'm Arabina Apia. Good night, everyone.
you